What is going on? Welcome to the Second of Strength podcast, wherever you're at. I'm grateful you're here. I'm grateful you're listening. If you haven't done so, if you could go and subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode, and then share it with someone is always helpful. But then one thing that really helps me a lot is if you go and leave a rating for the show wherever you listen to it. But today we've got a fun episode. We're going to talk a little bit about growth. I've been thinking a lot about growth recently, both my personal growth, the growth of my family, the growth of you and the people who listen and the people who follow me on Instagram and the teenagers that I am fortunate to go and help and speak at schools and different places. So I've been thinking a lot about growth and what are really the key components of growth. And so we're going to talk about that today. And I think there's 5 key components of growth that will help you go from wherever you're at right now to wherever you want to be. And the first of those key components is a seed. And so if you think about plants, we're going to kind of associate this with plants today and what really helps them grow. But we're not that dissimilar from plants. And so we're going to talk about that today. And the first thing that you need is a seed. And to me, a seed is a dream. You need a dream. You have to have a vision of growth, of what you want to accomplish. And you don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to know today where you're going to end up, how it's all going to work out, what's going to go on, where you want to be. You don't have to know any of that, because dreams actually do change, and you will, as you get older, as you grow, as you develop. And I say older, I don't care if you're 40 years old, and because there's still so much life ahead of you. So, but you do have to have a seed. You have to plant that seed, that thing in you that you want to grow. And that may be a vision to help a lot of people. That may be a vision to become something different. That may be a vision to make more money financially. That may be a vision of any numerous to build something, to be creative. Like, there could be so many things of what that seed is, but it starts with a seed, and you have to plant that seed. You have to let it grow. You have to let it become the thing that you want it to become. And I think too often, a lot of people get really frustrated because they're not growing or they're not progressing. And the challenge is that I don't know that we've planted a seed. I don't know that we've planted a seed of what we really want to accomplish or really which direction we want to go. And if we haven't planted a seed, how can we expect to grow? Or we don't know what will grow there, right? I mean, because if you think about your garden, you think about what's going on there, there's a lot of weeds and a lot of things that are growing, but we didn't really plant those things. Those aren't really the things that we want to grow. So what do you actually want to grow? That's the first question I would ask you. What do you actually really want to grow? Plant that seed. That's the seed that we should be planting, that we should be harvesting, that we should be cultivating. But that leads right into point number 2. So the first thing, you just have to have a seed. You have to have that goal. What do you really want to grow? The second thing is you have to plant that seed in good soil. I think a lot of times, and when I think of good soil, I think of fertile things that are going to help you grow, things that are going to put you in a position for growth. Because a lot of people aren't doing that. And specifically, I think that the places that we are and the people that we're surrounding with ourselves are limiting who we can become and limiting the growth, the seed, the dream, the potential that we have. And it is really hard, but you can't be at your best if you're hanging out in places and with people that do not bring out the best in you. If they are bringing out some of the worst things in you, then we've got to check ourselves and kind of recognize that those probably aren't the people that we need to hang out with to put us in a position for growth and the future and the happiness and all the things that we want to be in our lives. Because if we're not in those modes or with those people or in those places, it's really hard to grow. And I think one of those things is habits. What are the habits that we are creating? I want you to think about this for a second. The habits that you have in your life. Think about maybe a habit that isn't one of the better habits that you have. I have lots of bad habits. Think about the bad habits that you have, maybe a bad habit, and think about that habit. Does it always occur in the same place? Maybe at the same time? Maybe with the same people? Think about that. Habits have memories. The habits that you have in your life, they have memories. They have memories of when, they have memories of time, they have memories of places, they have memories of people. And if you're struggling with something and it's become a habit and maybe a negative habit, think about where and how and with who that happens with. And then we've got to change that. that means that we are planting that seed in soil that is not good. We are in a position, we aren't growing because we're in a place that is not good for us. Those are the moments where we have to recognize that, and we've got to change something. And that might be different people in our lives. That might mean physically moving. That might mean spending our time in different places. That might mean throwing your phone across the room so it's not near you. There's lots of ways that you can change the soil that you're planted in so that you can begin to grow. And so think about that. Think about the habits that you have. Think about where they're occurring. Think about who they're occurring with and what time they're occurring. And if it's all happening at the same, there's a common denominator between those things and the negative habit that you have, then chances are you got to change something. You got to change something. You got to distance yourself from something. You got to move. You got to do something different to break that habit. And the good news is the new habit that you can create, that also has a memory. So you are then creating a neurological pathway in your mind with a positive habit because you are breaking the neurological pathway that you have in your mind from the negative that you're doing. So that is the second thing. Make sure you are planting in good soil. The third thing is you got to give space to grow. If you think about the plants in your garden, the plants outside, they need space, physical space. And I think what happens for us is that we don't give ourselves that space, and it happens from our comfort zones. We are stuck in a box in our lives, and we are limiting our potential because we are limiting our growth because we're stuck in our comfort zone. There is no growth in comfort. There's a quote, a comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. And that's the reality of it. And you can stay where you're at, and you can stay there, and you can be comfortable. You could live there for a really long time. But I know if you're listening to this podcast and you're following me on Instagram, you are not somebody who is content staying in your comfort zone. Am I right? Like, you want to grow because you feel inside of you that there is more. You feel inside of you that there is greatness. You feel inside of you that there is an untapped potential that you are worthy of tapping into. And it starts by overcoming and stepping outside of your comfort zone, getting a little bit uncomfortable, moving beyond that comfort zone, stretching the boundaries of what you thought was possible, because that's where growth is. And I will always say it, that takes 1 second of strength to do. Just 1 second of strength to choose to step outside of your comfort zone. When you do that, growth starts happening. Growth starts happening because you are now broadening and widening your perspective of what you thought was possible because you're stepping into unknown territory. And I know that's scary. And it's scary because I do it. I do it all the time. I force myself out of my comfort zone all the time. Starting a podcast, uncomfortable. Speaking in schools, uncomfortable. Getting on the phone and talking with people about my next speaking engagement, uncomfortable. There's a lot of things that are uncomfortable. But on the other side of that discomfort is growth. On the other side of that discomfort is happiness. On the other side of that discomfort is everything that you've ever wanted. And so you have to give yourself space to grow. Give yourself that. And I promise it'll help you. So that's the third thing. We need to give ourselves space, because on the other side of that space, on the outside of that comfort zone, is where we grow. The growth zone, as they say. So the fourth thing is light. Plants require light to grow. And the reason they require light to grow is because that is where they convert, and I'm not a horticulturist, I should not even be talking about this, but that is where they convert light into energy, right? They convert food, they convert water into energy. And a lot of that comes from the light. And so we need to think about that. What are the things in our life that give us energy? What are the things that are keeping us down or limiting us? And that could be actual physical darkness. There's like, if you think about seasonal depression, wherever you're at listening in the world, I know that I have listeners who are not just in the United States, but are in other countries and other horizons and time zones and I don't know what it's called, hemispheres and all the things, right? So there's something that is called seasonal depression. And seasonal depression, because it gets darker, it's light for shorter periods in the day, and you don't get as much light. And think about that. If that is a natural thing that kind of happens to a lot of people, we get seasonal depression, then are we putting ourselves into seasonal depression because we're not giving ourselves enough light, because we're not getting outside, because we're not spending out enough time out doing things? Our body needs vitamin D because vitamin D helps us, and it actually helps us to be happier. And so are you actually literally like limiting your happiness and your potential because you're not getting light? Think about it. And if you are, then I would literally go outside and spend time on the back patio, spend time on a walk, spend time out there. But aside from that, as we think about converting to energy, what are the things that give you energy? And are you doing those things? Are you doing things that are going to help you be happier, help give you energy? Because you know what? I think a lot of people get really stuck in these ruts or stuck in these, the stresses of life, the anxiety of life. Like a lot of people are down right now. And I hope that's not you, but if it is you, I want you to think about this. Think about if you are feeling down, when was the last time you did something for yourself that gives you energy? When was the last time you chose to fill your cup? When was the last time you gave to you because you deserve it? We have to do that. We have to do that because the more we do that, the more we can help other people. And at the end of the day, we're talking about growth on this podcast today. And if you are not growing, or you are struggling right now, then I would ask yourself if you are doing the things that are life-giving to you, or are you doing things that are holding you back? Because the more we do things that are life-giving to us, the more energy we will have to continue doing things that are important for us and for our growth. So that is the fourth thing. It's all about light. And then the last one is water. So plants need water to survive, to live. We all know that. I've killed many plants in my day because I don't water them the right way. Actually, the ones I like, I had this plant all throughout college that was like, I don't know, succulent or something. I don't know what they're called. This green plant, and it really didn't require much effort on my part. And I could water it and forget to water it and all the things, and it did pretty good for a really long time. So anyway, but that's aside the point. So but just like plants, we need water in our life. We need food. We need nutrients. We need to give ourselves those things. And in my mind, there are really two aspects of that. There's actual food, right? The good nutrients. Are we eating too much sugar? Are we eating too much junk food? Are we eating things that are weighing us down? Because if we eat the things that weigh us down, we actually don't have energy, and it actually is a trailing problem. Where if we eat a bunch of sugar today, then we'll be a little bit more lethargic for the next few days, right? And so think a few days in advance. If you need to, if you were to cut out sugar and eat healthier starting today, you wouldn't start feeling the benefits of that for a few days. And so eat good food. Eat foods that are nutritional for you, because I promise, even though it doesn't taste as good, it is way better for you and it'll help you. So I always say, if there is junk food in your pantry, it takes 1 second of strength to walk over, pick it up, and throw it in the trash. If there is soda in your fridge, it takes 1 second of strength to go and dump it out. And when you do that, I've done this before many times in my life. When you do that and you find your 1 second of strength and get rid of that junk food, you will feel better immediately, because you know that you just did something really beneficial. And then the next time you go to the store, find your 1 second of strength and leave it on the shelf instead of putting it in your cart. Even though when you're standing at the shelf and you see those Oreo cookies and you go, man, those look really good, I could really go for those right now, and your brain starts salivating over them, leave them there. And I promise you will feel better when you walk away knowing that you just did something really good and beneficial for yourself. So actual food. You have to feed yourself good actual food. But then I think what is lost a lot of times is the good mental food. Are we giving ourselves the good mental things that we need to strengthen ourselves and be better? And I think that that's both spiritual. Are we feeding ourselves spiritually? I don't care if, what religion you are or anything like that. If you are, you're not, whatever, but are you feeding your spirit in good ways? And then are you feeding your mind in strength and strengthening it? So I think that personal development, and for me personally, when I wake up every morning, I first fill my soul with good spiritual things. And then I also spend at least 20 minutes, if not more, in personal development. What are the things that I need to develop personally? Those are the things that I want to listen to. And whether that's a podcast, you're doing it right now if you're listening to this podcast, if you made it this far in. So we're doing a couple of things the right way, but make sure that you are doing that every single day, because that is one of the greatest ways that we can work on ourselves, is strengthening our mind. Because to do these things, to grow, to, have the right seeds, to have good soil, space, light, water, to feed yourself good nutritionally, both food and spiritually and mentally, to do all those things, it is hard. You are on a road, my friend, that is not easy. It's not. But it's worth it. And you're going to be happier because you do it. And it takes this choice and this constant decision to continue. Because when it gets really hard, our brain wants to retreat and go do easier things. But that's not you. That's not you. You're the person who is here because you want to grow and be better. You're the person who's here because you know that you are worth it. And so 20 minutes, even if it's 20 minutes a day of personal development, doing the things that you know, learning about the things that you need to learn so that you can grow is going to help you get to where you want to go. So I hope that helps today. Think about growth. Think about, what is your dream? What do you want? What are the seeds that you are planting? Are you planting yourselves in good soil? Both the places and the friends that you're with, are the habits, the negative habits that you have right now, are they because you are in not great places and spaces and with people? Because habits have memory. Make sure that you are conscientiously leaving your comfort zone, because that is where you're going to grow. And it's so much easier to stay comfortable in your comfort zone, but it's not really what's worth it. You got to step out of that. Make sure you're getting enough light. Make sure you are doing the things that give you energy so that you can continue to do the things that are really important. And then make sure that you're feeding yourself the right way, both mentally, spiritually, and physically. And I think that those 5 things right there are going to put you on a path that is going to really, if you think a year down the road, a month down the road, 2 years, 5 years down the road, if you're doing these things every day, you will end up in a place that when you look back, you won't even recognize where you were. So, and I'm excited for that day. And I hope that 5 years from now, we're still hanging out and talking, and you tell me how these things helped you over time. So thank you. Appreciate you. If you haven't, I mentioned, I love it if you go and leave a rating and review for the show. It really helps me. And I'll leave you the same way I always leave you. Go find your 1 second of strength and be happy.